Okay, welcome back everybody. We continue on this larger Perek Lamed Zayin. I believe this is the fifth or sixth even class on this Perek. It is a longer Perek. But B'ez Hashem will move on. In the original text it's Memches, page Memches. In the English text you have the Ela Sheshishim Ribui, which are these 600,000 particular souls. So we go on. In the original text, it's on Memches. It's about half through the page, give or take half through the page. Kiklos, or actually it's a bit earlier. Kiklos Yisrael, which is again in the original text, half the middle of the page of Memches. To see the previous classes, to quickly repeat for all the newcomers to understand generally the flow of the Tanya, and in this chapter in particular, you could the first class is in it. On it, you could in the link box here. You could do Tanya online. Put the Tanya word Tanya, or on the Tanya Online website, tanyaonline.com, tanyaonline.com website, where you can see all the previous classes, and namely you could follow easily with the text, including this very last week's class is already on. More so even when you want to follow up with the present class, it's usually within about a few hours after it comes up on this main Kosher 2 website. And it should be on there, usually. So, Ki Klolos Yisrael Shem Shishim Ribu Neshamas Pratis, and Klolos HaChayis Shel Klol HaOlam, Ki Bishvilom Nivra, B'chol Prat Mehem, Hu Kol V'Shaychos Loi, HaChayis Shel Chelik Echad Mishishim Ribu Miklolos HaOlam, HaToli B'Nafshech HaYunis, L'Haloisei Al Hashem, Bal Yoso, Dahainu Mamesh Mishtamish, Ma'olam Hazeh, L'Tzeir Gufay B'Nafshech HaYunis, L'Vedus Hashem, Kegen Achilo, Ushsio, V'Demeim, V'Dira, V'Gol Kol Kli Tashmishov. Now, to be honest, I don't remember if we said, because I know we did speak about it. We said that we pointed out with this, based on this, what it says, that the world was created. This is Bereshis. The world was created. The Bereshis could be read Beis Reshis. In other words, Bereshis is the first word of the Torah, which deals with creation. In the very beginning, Hashem created the world. So Bereshis, our sages of blessed memory note, it could be read Beis Reshis, meaning to say that the two reasons Hashem created the world. Beis, the numerical value of Beis is 2. One Bishvil HaTorah, one Bishvil Yisrael. Or the order the opposite. Either way, it's for both Bishvil HaTorah for the Torah, Bishvil Yisrael for the Yid. Now, it means that obviously when Hashem, even though the significant majority of the population, of the inhabitants of the world are not Yidden, but Yidden, the Jew, has the mandate to be Or LaGoyim, to set the tone, to be a light upon the nation. The Yidden are the chosen nation. And we have that unique mandate. It's not just an honorable term or an honorable badge, but it's a responsibility that you has, that Hashem created the world for yourself to set the tone, to be a shine upon the nations, to be the example how to live and how to bring light into this world. And fulfilling our mandate of making this world a home for Hashem. And this is again through a organized manner, a pattern of daily investment in this service, which comprises this unique mandate. And this is what we become an Or LaGoyim, a light upon the nations, that everybody, every human being, or every part of creation ultimately, but namely every human being knows that it's about a daily investment. It's about restricting oneself from following their just temptations or instincts. If it violates there violates the desire of Hashem. Again, every individual, every Gentile has their 7 Noahide laws, which naturally branches off to a number of other important laws, which ultimately is in the context of bringing the light, the godly light, into this world and transforming this world and making it a dwelling place for the Almighty. And it means that it's about a daily investment, and it's a daily toil, and it's being diligent about it, and serving the Almighty diligently, assiduously, and that's the way we ultimately transform the world. It's not just removing ourselves and flying in some cloud and believing that things are going to change. Many times the opposite, when we disconnect with the actual service, we disconnect with the actual performance, with the actual need or understanding of need to perform and to work with this physical reality. It would be expressed between me and my fellow friend, honesty, integrity, and so on and so forth. Then many times it's been proven that it does not have positive results, and just the opposite may be true as well. As opposed to, we understand that it's about a daily investment, and it's about effort and toil, again, in this very physical world, among friends, among society, making the difference. Obviously, in how my dealings and my interaction with society, obviously all predicated in the belief of Hashem, which again becomes the mandate of every single human being. But the Jew is there to demonstrate this very idea, and that's why the Torah mitzvahs deal with this very physical world, as spoken many times. And as such, we become Er Lagoyim, a shine upon the nations. Again, it's a responsibility, not just a statement of honor, being the chosen nation. So, Bereshis, the world was created for the Yid, and for Torah and for the Yid. Beis Reshis. So when the Jew does his Avodah, when the Yid does his Avodah, the entire world is elevated based on what we spoke about in the culminating message of the Alter Rebbe, the last week's class, as he builds up this so eloquently builds up this edifice, literally showing us step by step, brick by brick, how this all unfolds, how this all transpires, how the world becomes a dwelling place for Hashem when the Jew does his Avodah, when the Yid, even the other human beings. In this case, Alter was talking about the Yid doing his service. By taking all the mitzvahs is about taking the physical and transforming it, that it doesn't receive its chayis, its energy from klipas nega anymore. It attaches itself to the divine, to kedusha. The energy it receives it solely from the divine. And again, this is the important point, that everything is usually receiving, again, if it's not a chetzer shel kedusha, if it's not like a pair of tefillin or mezuzah, which that itself became a object of kedusha, a holy object via man's investment. He took the skin of an animal, which was receiving its energy from klipas nega, and it transformed it. Now became a mezuzah. It's receiving its energy from the divine, directly from the divine, directly from the kedusha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so this is a key word, the klipas nega. And again, we're not going to take the time to again translate this. It was so much spoken about and dissected, this very term, in the very previous classes, additional to where this came up in the original place, which is chapter 6, which you can easily just jump to chapter 6 and on the Tanya Online website and easily find these terms in its explanation. But even in this very chapter, the Alter Rebbe, we explained this and elaborated on this very term. But this is the key, to take the klipas nega and transform it to kedusha. So it starts with man's investment, again, just tidbits of the previous classes, man's investment in the actual, taking the physical and transforming it by doing mitzvah by mitzvah. It's a mezuzah, if it's tefillin, or if it's money which is given to tzedakah, as we noted a number of times, even the animal which was put onto the sacrifice, which was initially just an animal, a kosher animal, naturally, so it receives its energy not from shel klipas meis, but from klipas nega. But when it goes onto the altar, it becomes a mitzvah. And similarly, everything which, again, Hashem told us to do the mitzvahs with, we change the kind of the conveyor belt of this very object who till now was receiving from Klippas Nega, and now from Kedusha, hence it's elevated to the world of the divine, the world of this, the sanctified, etc. So this is the Alter Rebbe goes on and he says it doesn't begin from the mitzvah. You ate that day, you drank that day, so, and with this energy you were able to perform the mitzvah, so that itself, this which you ate and drank, which again is certainly tied down and associated with this very physical world, is also transformed and elevated. And then he goes on and he said, when I do my Avodah, my service, at that point my Nefesh Bahamis is also elevated. With Nefesh Bahamis, the animal soul, and the vitalizing soul, which till the Yid does his Torah mitzvahs, receives its energy from Klippas Nega, and that itself now is elevated to Kedusha. And then it's my animal soul, and the other party, the entire, all the Yid do their Avodah, the entire world, again, elevates itself. Michala Asa v'Tumasa is the expression of the Alter Rebbe for me. Tumasa v'Chala Asa, from its impurity and its illness. And it elevates itself to the divine, to be a Merkava, a chariot, a conduit, a chariot to the divine. A chariot. As we explained again, the virtuous term of chariot. And with that, the Shalosh Klippas Atmeis, which is the lower level of Klippa, again, also expanded many, many times, even in this very chapter. But it's that Klippa, Klippa meaning that impure level of impurity, the nadir, the lower level, the inferior level of impurity, which usually cannot be elevated, but that's crumbled and obliterated because the Klippas Nega is the bridge between Kedusha and Shalosh Klippas Atmeis. Again, explain this, how this works as well. So the Klippas Nega has its elevation, Shalosh Klippas Atmeis completely crumbles, and the world, the Molikved Hashem, and the world is full with the honor of Hashem, evidently, which is again the Yemei Mashiach, the times of Mashiach, Yidden see eye to eye with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, similar to Matan Torah, which then Hashem expresses cosmically, Atu Harei Soladas Ki Hashem Malikim. And finally, the Alter Rebbe also points out the importance of staying away from anything that Hashem says not to do, not to engage in this with Hashem, which is contrary to the Ratzon Hashem, because then we attach ourselves. The negative energy of Klippas Atmeis flows through our sinews, and therefore it becomes a problem of us fulfilling our mandate. That means it becomes a problem of the ability for us to elevate this Klippas Nega, because somewhat we're anchored via our violation. God forbid, and this is what Hashem says not to do, and therefore we have to be very careful in every detail, if it's a deraisa or a derabbanon. And then the Alter Rebbe says, and with this we're able to do our avodah, our service when it comes to mitzvahs, say the positive mitzvahs. And again, culminating. So this is what we culminate in the last class, which is in these words. Like I said, I don't know if we did the text, but regardless, the message is that in the end of the day, when everyone does a service, there's not one part of the world which is not ultimately elevated and does not demonstrate the oneness of Hashem overtly. V'molik ve'ed Hashem es kol ha'aretz. U'mol ha'aretz ve'es Hashem. Not mol ha'shamayim, that the heaven is full of the knowledge of God, but the physical world is full of the knowledge of God. We say something is full. There's no part of the world which doesn't demonstrate that Hashem. It doesn't matter where the person is. In the Far East, or the Far West, wherever the person is, the entire world has been elevated. Now, who says the entire world? Maybe just a part of the world, wherever the Jew is, where he's doing his service. But this is what the Alter Rebbe says it over here again in these words which we just read. And again, I believe we just did explain it last week, that because the energy would exist within this world, when you say that the world was created for the Jew, meaning to say that Hashem had the kind of the blueprint of the world itself is based on, because you say it's for the Torah, for the Jew, which means the Torah, the blueprint of this world. And so to the Jew, how many, based on the amount of Jewish people, that's how much investment, that's how much energy that Hashem invested in this world, that created this world. That's why it's this particular size. And the world has its particular amount of inhabitants, and everything is with great specificity, because based on how many Yidden there are. If Hashem created the world for Bishvil Yisrael, for the Yid, so based on how many Yidden there are, and in other words, Hashem measured perfectly with precision, how much does it take that within the world, and how much, if it's a Yid, has the ability to it's within the Yid's ability to transform a part of this world. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows how much every neshama has the ability of every neshama to how much it can transform from this physical world. So Hashem knows how many neshamas there are, which we know there's 600,000 neshamas, 600,000 souls. Again, there's a number which, when the Jewish people came out of Mitzrayim, Hashem gave that stem, that number to Am Yisrael, the Shishim Ribbon. Now, is there only 600,000? As we speak, Baruch Hashem, there's 14 million Jews. King Yirbu, should it only grow? So what's the number 600,000? We'll explain it again in today's class. So there's 600,000 neshamas. So Hashem knows how much every neshama, or every level of the neshama, if it's neshama or the level of nefesh or ruach. Again, I don't know if we ever explained this, but basically there's different functions of the neshama. Each one looks after another dimension within of the Avodas Hashem. Maybe intellectualizing Torah, maybe a heart expression of love and fear to Hashem, maybe the actual performance of the mitzvah, maybe a pleasure in Hashem, maybe a mesiras nefesh, a self-sacrifice to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So these are different levels of the neshama, which which replace these different multiple dimensions within Avodas Hashem and our service to God. So Hashem knows exactly how many neshamas there are. There's 600,000 neshamas, and how much the neshama could ultimately make an impact and transform that part of the world. Again, the world which was created for these neshamas, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world with much precision, knowing that how much a neshama could ultimately do its job and elevate that part of the world, how much a nefesh could elevate that part of the world, and the ruach, and so on and so forth. Which again, these are different levels of neshamas. So Hashem didn't create the world bigger than that, larger than that, with more energy than that, or more to do, more to elevate. So ultimately, with the neshamas, these 600,000 neshamas do their aveda. There's not one ayah, there's not one point, there's not one nakuda, there's not one part of the world which is not elevated. And as we mentioned, basically, like for example, the Gemara, we gave the example, the Gemara says Mashiach is going to come, someone's going to chas v'shalom want to take off a te'ena, a fig off the tree of Shabbos, which obviously applies to every fruit. The Gemara gives an example, te'ena. The te'ena itself is going to scream Shabbos, because the te'ena is infused and is connected directly with the Kedusha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as opposed to the way it's in Golus. There's nothing in between, there's no layers, there's no layers of Klipas Nega, and so on and so forth. It's directly connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so the Te'ena itself is so in tune with the reality of God, and God says, do not take off this fig on Shabbos. It's a prohibition, so the Te'ena, the fig itself, will say Shabbos. Now, where is that? Is that only in a place where there's many Yidden doing their service? In Yerushalayim, in Bnei Brak, Brooklyn, and so on? For other parts of the world where there's Jewish communities where they're invested in doing their service? But the answer is obviously not. It doesn't matter. It'll be a tree in India or a tree in China, even though today there's communities even in those places, which is also part of the master plan. Kol Elam has a kuli, like the Alter Rebbe wrote, writes in the chapter 36, which is pretty much the build-up to chapter 37. But because all the Yidden will do their Aveda, and again, this is a cumulative process from the time of Matan Torah, 3,300 years, all the 600,000 neshamas are doing their Aveda. At that point, because again, it's a perfect measure, and it works with perfect seamlessness, meaning to say that the exact amount of neshamas are doing their Aveda, or again, the different parts of the neshamas are doing their Aveda, that's exactly amount of this which has to be transformed to Kedusha, of energy of Klipas Nega that has to be transformed to Kedusha. Like in a machine, there can't be, just like there can't be missing anything, there can't be anything extra in a printer, in a recorder, and so on and so forth. And because it's about precision, a machine works with precision. An oven, a dryer, a washing machine. There can't be anything extra, just like there can't be pieces missing. And so too, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's 600,000 neshamas, and the world was created for the neshamas to do their aveda. In other words, that the neshamas will elevate this world, so every neshama does its service. So eventually the entire world is elevated. There's not one nakuda. Again, you're dealing with the expression of precision, an expression of meticulousness, not only of the human being, but of the Almighty Himself, the perfect Almighty, which is all about perfection. So the entire world doesn't remain not one iota of this world which is not elevated. For the fact that the Yid, again, utilizes this physical world for the service of God, for his bodily needs. He's even at nefesh chayunis, which is animal soul. But again, not just for the sake of indulgence in the physical, just for the sake of pleasure, the animalistic pleasure, but lavedas Hashem for God. Again, achila, again, the need to eat, it's about the nefesh bahamis, which is sending its signal that we have to eat already. But again, it's lavedas Hashem, it's for the sake of God, the simulacity, drinking, and anything, any other engagement in this physical world. And when it's done lavedas Hashem, and again, he says if it's a home, or a klei tashmisha, anything which a person, all the utensils man has, if it's his car, or his tools, or his table, his chair, and so on and so forth, if it's utilized, it's okay that it is, and it's a good thing that it is, and it exists, but it's all, if it's utilized, lavedas Hashem, he has a table, he could sit and learn Torah. He has a good car, so he can go to the Beis HaMedrash on time to go to his shir. So the car itself is elevated for HaKadosh Baruch Hu by that perfect, again, number of the 600,000, which correspond to the 600,000. Again, that was the wording over here. There's a 600,000 energies, streams of energy coming into this physical world, corresponding to the 600,000 Yidden. In today's class, Al Rebbe says, don't we know that there's more than 600,000 Yidden? Even today, again, Ken Yirbu, and the answer is Shesh'ela, in the wording which we began over here in the text El Elo, which is about three quarters down Memches, and on in the English text, these 600,000. Elo, Sheshishim Ribu Neshamas Pratis, Elu Hen Sharashim, that these 600,000 souls, they are roots. Chol Shadish, and every root, Mischalik, is divided, Leshishim Ribu Nitzutzes, to 600,000 sparks. So these are subdivision. They're subdivided to 600,000 sparks. Every root is divided to 600,000 sparks. So now we can understand these numbers start making sense, matching what is real. Again, certainly when you're dealing with this accumulative process throughout all of from Matan Torah, 3,300 years from Matan Torah, and you're dealing and even though there's certain neshamas which are reincarnated, it means that they come down again the same very neshama. But you could do the math: 600,000 times 600,000. You see that it's that there's no more questions. That today again we have more, and if you deal with the previous generations as well, so it's 600,000 times 600,000 for every one of the 600,000, again, which is established in Torah as the number of Am Yisrael, are a root, and every root is divided to 600,000 as well, sparks. Shekol nitzutz neshama achas. Every spark is one neshama, and so too v'chein benefesh, v'ruach. Similarly, when you deal with the part of the neshama which is the nefesh, and so too the ruach, which we briefly just explained, I believe earlier, I think in the third chapter, or the second chapter, I believe we did explain as well the differences of the neshama. Basically, each part of the neshama with its particular, which is with its fulfilling its particular the dimension within the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as we just mentioned. There's love, there's fear, which is again emotional attachment to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's the intellectual attachment to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There is that submission of just doing what Hashem wants us to do, putting on the tefillin, doing His mitzvahs. There's learning Torah dimension. Then there is the thought, again associated a little more with the intellect, or ultimately the emotion. And then there is Mesiras Nefesh, a self-sacrifice, which is a separate Avodah of Tshuva, Avodah of Yechidah Shemenefesh, which is again sometimes many times aligned with Tshuva, that connection even beyond Mesiras Nefesh for that matter. It's not that he's doing Mesiras Nefesh, he just cannot disconnect from the perspective of his Yechidah Shemenefesh. Again, these are different levels of the Neshama, just saying very briefly. So he points out over here, Neshama, Nefesh, Ruach. Doesn't mention Chai Yechidah over here, because predominantly the Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama is Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama is which is ultimately manifest, or doing that Avodah, that service, literally majority of the time, especially in normal times within Am Yisrael, just learning Torah, davening, and so on and so forth, doing the mitzvahs. Within every world, from the four worlds, Atzilus, Bri, Yitzira, Asiya, which is Alter Rebbe again, even that very second chapter, pointed out that there's certain neshamas which stem from Asiya, again the four worlds we mentioned again a number of times. These are worlds which are brought in Kabbalah and even in other many Sfarim. The four worlds which ultimately emanated from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and everything evolves. World of Bria evolves from Atzilus, and the Yitzira from Bria, and Asiya from Yitzira, and that's the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. It wasn't just the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then this physical world. It's a gradual process. There's graduation. There's a gradual process an evolving from the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu for himself by himself, which is the Ein Sof. And eventually he emanates, the world of Atzilus is emanated from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, yet it still remains divine, but yet it has that duality. It remains divine, Atzilus, Etzli V'Samoch, it's close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as it says in a number of places. And the light of Atzilus, Hashem, and the Kelim and the vessel of Atzilus are truly one, which means they are all about carrying that same message of infinity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yet there's a certain distinction. There's Midas, there's Esesphiris, which obviously doesn't exist when you're dealing with the core essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's 10 levels, Chochmah, Bina, Das, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, and Yisei, Malchus, again, which are the Midas. And they are there's it's called an Olam Atzilus world, which by definition is the Lashon Hel and Behester, covers up over that purity of the Pshitus of the Ein Sof, before the unadulterated Ein Sof, if you want to even say that exact word, but I mean to say even in Atzilus, cannot ultimately say that this is about HaKadosh Baruch Hu for himself by himself. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is obviously not about Svidus. There's no description when it comes to the Ein Sof. That's why it's called Pshitus, Pashut B'Tachlis. Pshitus meaning to say that it's transcendent of any description and any definition. And as holy as Atzilus is, as lofty as it is, and as divine Atzilus is, as we just said, Ilu Hashem with his aura, the light of Atzilus, the utensil, the vessels of Atzilus rather, are one, meaning to say they carry the message of Ein Sof, yet it's a kind of an entity which carries that message of Ein Sof. And again, in saying this very brief, this is very much elaborated in Chassidus in general, even in Tanya. And yet again, it's still a description, it's still a olam, but yet it's kind of the intermediary between the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to this lower world, which is Bria. And Bria already begins the Bria, the Nivra, the idea of Nivraim, even though again, even that is at a very lofty level. El Bria, it says that's where Gan Eden is, Gan Eden Elyon is. So it's obviously a very spiritual world, but yet less, significantly less. There's a very big gap between Atzilus and the subsequent three worlds, Bria, Yitzira, Asiya. And as explained many times in Kabbalah and in Chassidus, explain it so well. For even Gan Eden is a world, Neshamas Yeshim V'Nen, and you can have a no from the no that you can appreciate it and derive pleasure, something which is attainable to you. And we're dealing with it. If you're dealing with the Ein Sof, you can have a no from the Ein Sof, because if you have a no, it means to say it's already not Ein Sof. You have pleasure, it's not Ein Sof anymore. Because in the end of the day, a neshama, as much as a part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but yet it becomes a mitzius. That any mitzius cannot there's no greater distance from anything which is a mitzius to the Ein Sof, to the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the way the way Hashem is for himself by himself. So we must say that this is a great contraction. Even Gan Eden is a great contraction from the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It condenses, it conceals layer after layer. For that matter, world after world, it says just these are general elements, but there's infinite amount of elements as well. Again, subdivided from these elements, or together with these elements, there's infinite amount of elements. These are very general elements, worlds. Atzilus Bria again contracts the air of Atzilus, or the Atzilus. It contracts the air, the light of Atzilus. The experience of Atzilus is contracted, and condensed, and concealed, or rather concealed layer after layer, which that produces El Bria. And then, so on Yitzir and Asiya again, We mentioned in the past, I believe it's chapter 2, which again is easy to access. But as the Alter Rebbe there in chapter 2 says, there's certain neshamas which come from Elam Asiyah or associated with Elam Asiyah, Yitzira, and Bria, and even Atzilus, even though in that very chapter, the Alter Rebbe says that every neshama comes ultimately from Atzilus, and from the highest level of Atzilus, Chochmah Atzilus. And the question is, why do we attribute their emanation or coming into being to these lower worlds? The reason is because they're very much impacted in these lower worlds. You come from a city, you come from a palace, for example, the king's palace. You grew up in the king's palace, but when if you just go by a particular city, you don't have the impact of the style of living of this city because you're just traveling through via that city. And so, too, in the Neshama of Tzaddik, explain that Moshe Rabbeinu, for example, he comes in Neshama Atzilus. He obviously travels through as it comes. The Neshama comes via all these elements ultimately to invest in this physical world, into the pure body of Moshe Rabbeinu. It wasn't impacted, therefore Moshe Rabbeinu was born. It says that the entire house was illuminated by the aid of the Neshama Moshe Rabbeinu, because it wasn't impacted as it traveled from world to world till it entered into this physical world, into the body of Moshe Rabbeinu. Again, this is all we explained in the second chapter. Certain this, as opposed to when you come into a place, you live there for a year, 2 or 3, you adapt the style, the lifestyle, and perhaps the characters and the behavior of the people there. So then you truly come from the environment of the king's palace, but you cannot yet say you're a palace a person. You're a person, a prince, or you might call yourself a prince, but you cannot say you're not impacted by the few years of living in that particular city. And if the city's behavior is generally okay, and you cannot compare that if you go live in a city and perhaps you adapt a bit to a city which's behavior is not that okay. And that's the point. All the neshamas come from Atzilus, in the highest level of Atzilus. But the reason why they're attributed to Bria, Yitzira, Asiya, because they become part of the experience of Bria, or Yitzira, or Asiya. So therefore they're attributed to those worlds. Again, with this quick parable which we just gave, you can look at all this mention over here, this associated with this line in the second chapter. But basically, without never saying again, that this is all subdivisions of the neshamas. The original number of the neshamas is locked in. HaKadosh Baruch Hu established 600,000 neshamas, yet they are roots. Each root is there's another 600,000 from each very root. We go on that every spark, meaning every neshama, did not descend to this world, even though it's a great descent. And it's a great golus, exile, for the neshama. Obviously, it's coming from the highest of heights, and it plummets to the lowest of lows. This physical world, in a physical body, in an nefesh bahamis, in an animal soul. So this is true golus, true exile, similar to the notion of exile. I want to be free, in a place where I feel comfortable. And when the person, God forbid, is placed in golus, in a place of exile, is just completely confined to the pain of this being confined to a new reality, namely a reality which it can't express itself the way it would like to. It doesn't experience the same experiences it had before. That's, in one word, golus. That's the experience of the neshama. The neshama did not go into Elam Hazeh. And again, he says did go into Elam Hazeh. The culminating part of this statement, it did not go into Elam Hazeh only for the reason, as we will learn again, to elevate this physical world. It's not for its own experience. Its own experience, for its own self-experience. It's a great golus. With people, certain times people go to far places which do not feel comfortable. And they feel it's a golus type of life. But for a purpose, for a reason. If it's for the physical, to gain, to make a parnasa, a few important deals, despite they just rather be home. That's where I am. That's where I love to be. That's the best of experiences. But you go to a place to put yourself in a goal for an accomplishment, and People do that for spiritual accomplishment. They would go on a shlichus far away from where they're comfortable. Their things are just natural, but they would go there for an accomplishment. Similarly, you're dealing with every single neshama has that the exact shlichus. Because the neshama on its own, it's a great yerida to come down to this physical world for every obvious reason. It's a galus. And more so, even he's going to reach the level of a tzaddik gomer. Gam shi tzaddik gomer, which that's not a simple task, especially if you learn Tanya. That our mandate is to be the Beinani, and tzaddik is something special that HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides us to. It gives us that energy, or establishes, reorganizes our system, and we would become the tzaddik. But it depends. It's a gift from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And again, this is what we learn in tzaddik. We say tzaddik gomer, according to the Tanya, is something which is wow. And even a Beinani, that Beinani someone never sins, not in action, not in speech, not in thought. You can imagine the tzaddik, again, it's not, he's completely transformed. We learned in the first chapters, namely from beginning of the Tanya till the clear description until the end of Yudalid, even though it's throughout as well, but clearly the description of the tzaddik. Tzaddik is something extremely special, unusual, based on the Gemara, which says, very few. Again, if you learn Tanya, you understand why they're very few. But let's say this person reached that level of being a tzaddik, and not stam a tzaddik, but a tzaddik gomer, a complete tzaddik, which that itself is something very special. Again, based on the Alter Rebbe's explanation, what a tzaddik gomer is. That is the greatest level that a yid could reach. That's the apex, the climactic state, the perfect state of a yid could reach is the tzaddik gomer. Again, it's not just a term. It sounds good, obviously, tzaddik gomer, but again, you can appreciate this if you understand what the tzaddik gomer is. The Alter Rebbe explains what a real tzaddik gomer is. He serves HaKadosh Hashem b'yira. The Ava serves HaKadosh Baruch with love, with fear, with love. Not stam the regular love, again, as explained, I believe, in Perek Tes. The Ava, which is Ava Kishalev Kirish Pe'esh, but Ava Rav Betanugim, you could look there, obviously, again, scroll down if you want to see the difference of Ava Kirish Pe'esh and Ava Betanugim. He says that's the highest level of Ava, loving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that this becomes your pleasure. You're not even driven to something. This becomes your pleasure. A tainug. The Ava to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Betanugim. I pleasurely love. Yet, it's still considered a great yirida. It's considered a great descent. Because le'yagi alamayles dvekusi b'Hashem b'tchilur chimu b'terim yiridos le'lemazeh achumri le'minei le'miktzaseh. That if the yid, despite reaching that level of tzaddik gomer again, which is the difference of tzaddik bechlal and Beinani, is that he's emotionally connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Beinani is that perfect yid, which serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu with thought, speech, and action. He's aligned with the Ratzon Hashem with action, speech, and even thought. And that's tremendous, stupendous. Just think about it. 24 hours a day, never is constantly aligned, and all the mitzvahs say, and all the mitzvahs lay says that with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's very special. So what's the difference in the tzaddik? If you all remember, that the tzaddik is about that he doesn't have an Yetzer Hara anymore. The Yetzer Hara has been transformed to Yetzer Tov by an Beinani, and he still has those challenges. And the signals come from the heart, yes, to violate, act in action, speech, and namely in thought, but he's completely controls it, doesn't allow those signals to come in to his action, speech, or thought. There is a mind which governs over the heart. So you can't say that he's always has an emotional relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because when you have an emotional relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what signals do you need to stop? You can't have him, the Nefesh Elikis is in full function, meaning to say that he's out of the year of love and fear to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The fact that you say that he has to stop the signal means to say that Meshvahamis is emotions are as well in function, are intact, and namely are in function in sending those signals. We said that the emotions of Meshvahis and Meshvahamis cannot express themselves simultaneously, because you cannot love something which is opposite, right? It's famous with Barton Chevis. You cannot love God and Elam Haza simultaneously. Obviously, Elam Haza, when it becomes purposeless, not associated with Avodas Hashem, which is again the antithesis of Elokus, of godliness. You cannot love God and love something which is the opposite of God and godliness simultaneously. So, when a person loves HaKadosh Baruch Hu, obviously, was in love with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, obviously, then there's no signal sent in my thought, speech, and action, or my action, speech, or thought. So that's the definition of the Beinoni. Yes, the Nefesh Bahamis is in function, meaning to say that the emotions of the Nefesh Bahamis are bubble up and send their signals. That says the Nefesh Elikis, the emotion of the Nefesh Elikis by a Beinoni is not always in function to the exclusion, if you remember. Remember the bonus of the HaKadosh Baruch Hu established within the life of the Beinoni, that by davening, despite he's a Beinoni, by davening HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the Beinoni, gave the Yid, the ability to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu on an emotional level. Davening is about establishing an emotional relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. An intimate relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a passionate relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But that's the bonus of davening. After davening, if you remember that one of the important establishments of the Alter Rebbe, again elaborated in the 12th, 13th, 14th chapter, and after davening, and despite you had a very booming, fervorous love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a passionate love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but after davening, Nefesh Bahamis comes up with its own passion, set of passions, temptations, and lusts, and so on. And the Aved of the Beinoni is to control, meaning to say at that point that Nefesh Bahamis is also, his emotions are in function, because the emotions of the Nefesh Elikis have to some extent subsided, and therefore the Aved of the Nefesh Bahamis is to control these signals which are coming to the thought and speech and action, namely thought and so on, as we explained, are perfectly understood. Yet his mind governs over heart. He does not allow, never does he allow the signals to come in, nor to action, nor to speech, not even thought, which makes him the Beinoni. Very special. So what's the difference in the tzaddik? The difference of the tzaddik has always that emotion. What the Beinoni experiences by davening, the tzaddik is around the clock. He's always emotionally connected to HaKadosh. He always has a passion to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And as such, his Nefesh, his Yetzer Hara is completely transformed. Again, it's a rarity based on this Gemara. That 24 hours, a person should not have Yetzer Hara at all. For the Yetzer Hara has been transformed to Yetzer Tov Mamash, becomes Mamash like that. Which that's the level of the Tzaddik Gomer. His whole love, if he has love, it's sold solely to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He doesn't have any passion to anything else other than Hashem, fear, and any other of his attributes and so on. Any other of his emotional faculties are completely Hashem, because he has an Ava Rabba B'Tanugim, his pleasure, his love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a pleasurely love. So apparently that one would say that if that's a Tzaddik Gomer, it's not such a great Yerida, it's not such a great descent from Gan Eden. What does the Neshama do in Gan Eden? Or where the Neshama originated from? It had that dvekas, that cleave, that connection, that passion to God and godliness on high. And now if he's a Tzaddik Gomer, if he reaches a level of Tzaddik Gomer, perhaps it's not such a great Yerida. Comes out to them and says, even if he reaches the Tzaddik Gomer, it's also called the Yerida. It's also a great plunge rather, and a great descent. For the love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the expression of God, of fear and love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu by a neshama, which is divested from body, as opposed to the neshama which is invested in body. In this physical world, there is no comparison. And Alter Rebbe says, even a bit, there's no comparison at all. And who reached the level of Tzaddik Gomer? This is even the Tzaddik Gomer. It says again, even the Tzaddik Gomer, which is serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with passion, with love, with fear, and the highest level of love and fear, or the highest level of love. Again, Alter Rebbe points out there, it's chapter 9, the difference of the Ava Kiddush B'Eish, which is also on its own a great level, to Ava B'Tanugim. And yet, even this tzaddik, because the neshama is invested in this physical world, and this Nefesh Bahamis, and so on and so forth, it is still a limited expression of love. Or love itself is not genuine, or it is genuine, but it's not. It's limited. It's confined by the fact that the neshama is invested in body and it is elam hazeh. And as opposed to when it's divested from this elam hazeh, divested from the body, from the guf, it flies, it soars on high with its love and fear. And Alter Rebbe says there's no comparison. There's no comparison between both of them. Hence, even by Tzaddik Gomer, it's a great Yedida. How much more so is by the average person, even the Beinoni, which is Nefesh Bahamis, is in full tag. Great Yedida. As we know, again, back to the Tzaddik Gomer, that it's known to every understander. Shaguf, one who understands Shaguf in Yochalis, the body, that the body itself cannot comprehend, it cannot tolerate that full measure of love and fear where the neshama has prior to investing in the body, to the body. So what's the point of the neshama taking it? Hashem taking the neshama, which stands with a constant vacancy, with a kind of sense of bleak vul of avaviyira. To a great extent, there's no limitations. It doesn't have the confinements of the guf, certainly not of elam hazeh. And it does soar on high. I mean, it's say the love is a kind of an infinite love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, relatively speaking, if you will. So it's a great Yerida. And how much more so, again, someone who's not a Tzaddik Gomer, or is less than a Tzaddik Gomer. And we know in Tzaddik there's tens of thousands of levels in Tzaddik. And then even less than that, he's a Beinoni, which is also very special. So many different. So by everyone, even anything less than a Tzaddik Gomer, how much more so there's the Yerida, the descent is so intense. So what's the point of coming down to this world? El Yeridas Elam Hazeh is descended to this world. The Slavish Beguf and Nefesh is to invest in a physical body, in an animal soul, is Kedei L'Sakna Bilvat. They're on a mission to be mitaken, to correct, to fix, to elevate, to fulfill its mandate with all this which we learned before, step after step, progress after progress in elevating this physical world to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. For there, in this very physical world, is where HaKadosh Baruch Hu essence lies simply. For HaKadosh Baruch Hu created everything, including all these supreme worlds, including the neshama, the notion of the neshama emanating from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is only for one reason, because Nis'ava, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, has this inner desire, the core, and again, a taiva comes from the core essence of a person. And similarly in the Nis'ava, we spoke about it in the past as well, the Nis'ava, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is the core essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Where did he want the Dira B'Tachteinim in this very physical world? So it's worthwhile for the neshama, even though it's, in its own experience, it's a great plunge and it's a great descent, but it's worthwhile for it to come down in order to fulfill the master plan of the Creator. You're not dealing with the pleasure of a created entity, which is the neshama, which, and from that perspective, the point of view, is just a yerida, it's galus, it's exile. Who puts himself in a state of galus? Who would put someone else in a state of galus, in a state of exile? But there it's about the pleasure of the created entity, being, which is the neshama, and here you're dealing with the pleasure to the Creator, fulfilling the nis'ava, that taiva, that pleasure, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu initially created everything, because he had that taiva, that pleasure, to have a dira, dwelling place in this physical world. So the neshama came down to this world's physical world, to correct and to make a difference here in this physical world, to separate them from the evil, from the sholosh klipas atmeis, meaning to say that the nefesh chayunis should be separated again, through guarding the 365 leisas, this what Hashem says not to do v'amtein, and their branches, which that's the way that Nefesh Chayunis is separated from the shaltuts that made the lower level of impurity, which on its own, Hashem says do not to do that. We dare to engage. We do not engage with that to say I'll elevate it. No, on the contrary, it'll bring you down, and the negative energy, the tumah, will flow through that sinew, which corresponds to that mitzvah leisas, and there will be a difficulty with to elevate yourself and the world, society around you. Therefore, we have to be again careful. Al Yedei, we separate the nefesh chayunis, the body and the animal soul. And this is part of the correction, that we make sure they do not become dirty. They don't connect, God forbid, they stay separated from the evil of the lower level of Klippa via guarding the 306 mitzvahs, 5 mitzvahs, or to elevate that very Nefesh HaYunis, the vitalizing the Nefesh HaBahamis, the soul, vitalizing soul, which is the Nefesh HaBahamis, in Chelko, with its lot, with its part, Mashayich Lo, which is pertinent to it, Miklovis and Haza, from this very physical world. Each neshama has its lot. Each neshama has its part, which, together with elevating it itself, the Nefesh HaYunis itself, its own Nefesh HaBahamis, together with that, it has the part within Elam Hazard that it is given a mandate to elevate as well, as we explained before in detail in this very chapter. Ulekashrom, and to connect them, uleyachtom, and to unite them, in the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which he draws in them, is Nefesh HaYunis, and his part and his lot, which is given to him as his particular mandate for him to elevate, to refine, and so on. And how does he do that? Again, like the Kiyum Mikol to say, through fulfillment of all the 248 mitzvahs, and he does it with the Nefesh HaYunis. Again, like we learned before, the Nefesh HaLikis would love to learn Torah and do the mitzvahs, but who actually realizes that, who makes it real, who implements it? It's the Nefesh HaYunis. It's the body, which ultimately, Shehihi HaMekayim Maisis Kinal, which has, that is this which ultimately fulfills all these mitzvahs. The Nefesh HaLikis does want to sense the direction, is the guide, and is directs the system, the Nefesh HaYunis and the Nefesh HaBahamis, to do what Hashem wants. But ultimately, who does that? How do I take a pair of tefillin? I take it with my body, and my body wraps the straps around my hand. Now my body receives its energy because I ate a good meal. If I wouldn't eat, if the person wouldn't eat, God forbid, he would expire. So it's the food which ultimately nourishes, brings blood, and allows the Nefesh HaYunis to flow through the system. Again, it invests in the blood, and to get into Nefesh HaBahamis with my physical body is which ultimately does the mitzvah. So Nefesh HaLikis sends the direction. Nefesh HaLikis cannot put on tefillin. Godly soul can't put on tefillin. It's as he says that the message, and part of the message of the fulfillment of the 240 mitzvahs, say, which is which elevates again the Nefesh HaYunis, the Nefesh HaBahamis, this vitalizing soul, together with its lot in this world, which is again pertinent to it, to that particular neshama. But part of that is because the Nefesh HaYunis itself, that is what allows the mitzvah to happen. Again, we explained it in the 36th, or rather in the beginning of the 37th chapter. Like it's explained in Eitz Chaim, the 26th portal. You know, Eitz Chaim wrote his sefer with portals, and every portal has its different chapters. So the 26th portal, he writes clearly. Neshama doesn't need to be any tikkun. Neshama is perfect. Neshama is part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Chelik lekamimal. It's part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And in it itself, it doesn't need tikkun. If it wants to be metakin itself, it certainly doesn't come into this Elam Hazeh, understandably so. That's not where you find tikkun for a neshama. A neshama which stands with a dveikus in a tchil rechim, which means a total perfect avaviyira to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, doesn't find tikkun in this physical world, which presents anything other than that on its own. And more so, it doesn't need tikkun. It's perfect. The whole point, the whole point it invests in this physical world, it comes to draw the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to be metaken, to bring perfection to the Nefesh HaYunis HaBahamis, to this vitalizing soul, the animal soul, to the body, and to society around it, to this physical world. It's the same idea of Dugma Segolos Ashchina, and in brief, it's a similar idea of the secret of the Golos of the Shechina. The Shechina comes down into Golos. And the whole point is Levada Nitzutzi, even though it's a great pain for the Shechina to be in Golos, understandably so. It's a physical pain. or if there's a spiritual confinement, which again, equally, and perhaps even more, is a greater pain for the neshama, it's a greater pain for the Shekhinah, to find itself in situations and states which is not in the way the Shekhinah would originally like to be in Eretz Yisrael, in the blissful spirit of the Beis Hamikdash, in Eretz HaKodesh, Shalayim HaKodesh, or any place which there is the Gilui of the Shekhinah. Unfortunately, as a result of our sin, we exiled from this special and again blissful state of Beis Hamikdash in Yerushalayim and Eretz HaKodesh, and we went into Golus together with the Jew going to Golus. The Shekhinah went into Golus, and it's a great pain for the Shekhinah to be Golus, and that's why this is part of Aveda, to alleviate the Shekhinah from the pain of Golus. But what was the point of this Shekhinah going into Golus, despite that it's on the surface? It's a terrible thing, and it's something which is very painful for the Shekhinah. But the Shekhinah, in the end of the day, Jewish people were dispersed all over the world. The Shekhinah went with them because the Shekhinah is kind of that motor for ultimately the Jew to be mevarer and itzuzus, to refine the sparks which are found all over the world, which Yidden and the world ultimately and on the surface, unfortunately, led to as a result of the Chatoenu, which brought Golus. But the Shekhinah, again, the Shekhinah as well, went into this Golus, ultimately mevarer and itzutzim. That there should be the biru, which means the elevation of all these sparks which are found in the entire world. Similarly, it's the neshama, which for that matter, the neshama, Shekhinah, there's a certain, obviously, similarity, because the neshama is a chiluk l'kamimal, part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's part of the Shekhinah, but individually, the neshama has that same, it's the same notion exists by the neshama. The neshama itself doesn't need tikkun, like the Shekhinah doesn't need tikkun. The Shekhinah is Hashem, and Hashem is a perfect Hashem. But the Hashem puts himself in a state of Golus for the sake of Bidur and Itzutzim, orchestrates that notion of the Shekhinah itself going into Golus, into exile, for the sake of refining of the Nitzutzim. Similarly, perhaps microcosmically, the Neshama itself, every Neshama on its own does not need tikkun. The purpose the Neshama come down into this world with this great this great plunge into a place which is very foreign and alien. Again, even he's a tzaddik gomor. And how much more so he's not a tzaddik gomor. It is the greatest yirida. What a great yirida is the famous expression, to the highest, from the highest mountain to the lowest of valleys. The lowest state of the valley, which is a great descent, a great plunge. And the whole point of it is not to mitakid itself, but to elevate this world and making a Kodesh Baruch Hu a dira b'tachtenim, a dwelling place in this very physical world, and to lead to that messianic state, the Tchias HaMesim state, which is the culmination of Kol Maseinu Avodaseinu, all our service and all our doings, that the Moli Kved Hashem is Kol Haaretz, and the honor of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, filling the entire land. Have a wonderful evening.